He took me to a party. A celebration for work, or so he said. I thought it would be just us, hand in hand, smiling. Like it used to be. But then I saw her. Victoria. His ex. The woman he left me for, 10 years ago. And suddenly, everything I believed about us shattered in a single glance. Welcome to her unspoken ties, where love, betrayal, and second chances collide. And every heart has its story waiting to be heard. Tonight's story is about marriage, past lovers, and what happens when someone tries to rewrite a decade of life. It had been 10 years since our wedding. 10 years of quiet routines, whispered promises, and shared struggles. I thought we were happy. At least, I believed we were. James, my husband, had dressed carefully. A crisp navy suit, tie perfectly adjusted, and that faint cologne I remembered from our first date. Ready? He asked, forcing a smile. Yes, I replied, though a flutter of unease danced inside me. The party was in a lavish downtown hall. Glass chandeliers, soft jazz floating in the background, the murmur of laughter surrounding us. We walked in, hand in hand, and then I saw her. Victoria. Everything about her was the same, her smile, her posture, the effortless way she lit up a room. It had been 10 years, but my heart remembered every detail. James froze. His hand tightened around mine. I didn't expect her to be here, he muttered. I nodded, forcing calm. Inside, my chest clenched, a tight knot forming. Victoria turned. Our eyes met for a fleeting moment, recognition flickering in hers. And then she smiled. James cleared his throat. We should talk, he whispered. 10 years ago, James had left me. For her. The memory of that night still burned. No explanation, no warning, just a note on the table. I'm leaving. Don't wait for me. I cried endlessly, questioning everything I thought I knew about love. But life moves forward. I rebuilt myself, quietly, piece by piece. Every tear became strength. James had realized his mistake eventually. Too late. And now, here he was, 10 years later, trying to patch things. With her standing only a few feet away. I followed James to the drinks table. His attempts at casual conversation felt strained. I laughed softly, nodding, careful to keep my voice neutral. Victoria approached him. James, it's been ages. Her eyes flickered to me. James's face changed. I could feel his panic even before his words betrayed him. Emily, this is Victoria, he said, awkwardly. Victoria smiled politely, but the air had already shifted. I sipped my drink slowly. Let him squirm. He deserved it, after 10 years of mistakes. I wondered if he realized how much I had changed. I wasn't the insecure, heartbroken woman he had left behind. I was stronger now. Calmer. And subtly untouchable. I watched him laugh at some joke she made. My heart ached briefly, but then I reminded myself. I had a life he didn't deserve to disrupt. I noticed the way guests subtly looked at me. Admiration. Respect. The realization dawned on James slowly. I was no longer the woman he could control, or the one he left behind. I smiled softly to myself. This was the start of my subtle, quiet revenge. The music in the hall shifted to a slow, soft jazz. James took my hand. "Dance with me," he asked, his voice almost pleading. I hesitated, just for a second. Then nodded. I wanted him to see me, not as the woman he left, but as the woman he underestimated. As we moved to the dance floor, I could feel the stares. Some admiring, some curious. Victoria was still nearby, laughing. Her presence sharp like a blade in the back of my mind. James leaned close, whispering, "I never should have left you." I looked into his eyes, calm, collected. "You did," I replied softly. No anger, no tears. Just quiet truth. 10 years ago, when he left, I had felt the world collapse around me. The man I trusted, the man I loved, had chosen someone else. The nights had been long, filled with tears and silent screams. I had wondered if I would ever feel whole again. And now, 10 years later, here he was, trying to reclaim what he had destroyed. As we danced, I felt the balance of power shifting. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't desperate. I was simply untouchable. James tried to hold my attention, to charm me with old memories, to remind me of the promises he had broken. But I smiled faintly, letting him feel the weight of my composure. It was a silent statement. Victoria noticed. Her eyes flicked between James and me. A slight tension, almost imperceptible, passed between us. Later, we sat at the drinks table. James leaned in, quietly. "I want to fix this, Emily. I want us back." I sipped my drink slowly, letting him wait. "I'm listening," I said softly. He began talking. Explaining, apologizing, recalling moments from the past. I let him talk. Every word he said revealed more about how much time had passed, and how much I had changed. Victoria came over. "James, do you remember the trip to the coast?" Her tone casual, but deliberate. I watched him squirm subtly. He realized, slowly, that I was no longer the same woman he had abandoned. He had to navigate carefully, like walking on fragile glass. I thought about the life we had built together, and the years I had spent healing, growing, learning. James had been gone for 10 years. 10 years of silence. 10 years of proving myself. I realized then, I didn't need him to come back. I didn't need his validation. But I could let him feel the consequences of leaving me. As the night progressed, I noticed small things. He tried to show Victoria off subtly. Guests whispered, noticing my confidence. James's attempts at charm looked forced. I let him squirm silently. No confrontations. No accusations. Just me being composed, graceful, and untouchable. Every glance from Victoria seemed to remind him. The woman he abandoned has grown stronger than his new relationship could ever make him feel. Later, someone brought up an old story from our early dating days. James laughed nervously. Victoria smiled knowingly. I let them talk. And in the quiet moments between the conversation, I whispered to myself, "You should have valued me 10 years ago." He could hear the words unspoken. The silent power of someone who has healed. The music ended. I walked away from the dance floor, leaving James slightly breathless. And Victoria's eyes narrowing. I knew he wanted to chase me. But I had learned patience. I didn't need to rush. I had the control now. And the game had only just begun. After the party, James tried to talk to me privately. I just want a chance to explain, he said, his voice heavy with regret. I looked at him calmly. You should have explained 10 years ago, I replied softly. He flinched, but didn't interrupt. He was realizing, slowly, that apologies alone could not erase a decade of absence. We left the party quietly. The city lights reflected in the car windows, casting long shadows across James' tense face. Emily. I made mistakes, he whispered. I was young, stupid. I thought I knew what I wanted. I kept my eyes on the road. 10 years, James, I said, calm, controlled. 10 years is a long time to realize your mistakes. He swallowed hard. The weight of my silence was heavier than anything I could have said. I remembered the night he left. No warnings, no fights. Just a quiet disappearance. I cried endlessly. I questioned my worth. I questioned love itself. Then I realized I could either crumble or rise stronger than I had ever imagined. And I did. I built a life on my own terms. One that no apology could break. I decided to let James try. But on my terms. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't show desperation. Every small gesture, every word, was measured, deliberate, quiet power. I let him speak first. I let him reveal his regrets and fears. And I listened. Not to forgive him, but to understand how much he had changed. Or hadn't changed at all. Victoria texted him that night. A casual message. It was good seeing you tonight. I saw it on his phone. No jealousy, no panic. Just awareness. I realized that Victoria, though gone from our lives, still held power over his mind. And I could use that to my advantage. The next few days were a careful dance. James tried to recreate old memories, send flowers, apologize for lost time. I responded subtly, acknowledging him, but never fully giving in. He invited me out for dinner. I accepted. Not for him, but to see if he truly understood the consequences of leaving me. Victoria occasionally called. Her name came up in conversation. James' discomfort was visible, but he tried to mask it. Every word, every glance, every action was a test. I observed him carefully. Did he truly regret? Did he understand that I had grown beyond his mistakes? I wanted him to feel the weight of the years he lost. Not through anger, not through confrontation, but through the silent, undeniable fact that I had moved on. During one evening dinner, James said, Emily, can we try again? I looked at him calmly. You mean, 10 years later? I asked softly. He nodded. I smiled faintly. Yes, we can try. But things will never be the same. He realized, slowly, the depth of what he had lost. He would have to earn my trust, not demand it. I decided to show him, not tell him, what he had missed. I booked a small charity dinner and invited his colleagues without him realizing it. I handled every detail flawlessly, showing competence and calm. I smiled, laughed, and shared stories. All while James watched quietly, realizing he no longer had control. Victoria called him again, hinting at nostalgia. He glanced at me, panic flickering in his eyes. I only smiled softly, letting him feel the tension. The next weekend, James invited me to another gathering. I agreed, but only to see how far he would go. The hall was buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. Victoria was already there, standing near the bar, looking radiant as ever. James smiled nervously. "I'll introduce you," he whispered. I shook my head. "No. Let him come to me," I replied softly. Victoria approached, her tone light, almost teasing. "Emily, it's been a long time. You look different." I smiled faintly. "Thank you." "Time changes people," I said. She raised an eyebrow, sensing the tension. "You both look cozy," she added, a faint challenge in her words. James shifted uncomfortably. I noticed the subtle panic flicker in his eyes. This was my first silent victory. Throughout the evening, I stayed composed. Every conversation I had, every laugh I shared, was calculated. James tried to dominate the conversation. Victoria tried to catch my attention. But I let them struggle silently. Guests noticed. They saw a woman confident, graceful, and untouchable. Not someone haunted by the past. James' discomfort grew. He realized slowly. I was no longer the woman he had abandoned. 10 years ago, I had felt broken. Every night spent wondering if love was worth the pain. But I rebuilt myself. Piece by piece, brick by brick. I found my own strength. And now, standing in the same room as James and Victoria, I was finally free. Later, as the music slowed, James tried to pull me aside. I don't want to lose you again," he said quietly. I looked at him, calm, collected. "You already did," I replied softly. He flinched, realizing the truth in my words. No amount of apologies could erase 10 years of absence. Victoria's gaze was sharp. She realized something too. The woman James left behind was no longer fragile. She was untouchable. As the night progressed, I received a message from Margaret, James' grandmother. "Emily, he hasn't changed. But you've grown into someone remarkable." I smiled faintly. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I didn't need to confront James loudly. I didn't need to humiliate him in front of everyone. My strength, my grace, my presence was enough to make him regret leaving. By the end of the evening, James was visibly shaken. He had tried to charm, to patch, to recreate the past. But he realized slowly that the past could not be recreated. I walked through the hall, smiling softly. Graceful, calm, untouchable. Victoria watched, realizing that her presence no longer intimidated me. James watched, realizing he had lost something irreplaceable. After the party, James became persistent. Calls, messages, attempts to meet. He wanted to explain, to beg, to reclaim what he lost. I responded selectively. Never too fast, never too eager. He arrived at my office one evening, looking nervous. "Emily, please, just hear me out," he said. I leaned back in my chair, calm. "I am listening," I said softly. But my silence spoke louder than words. Over the next few days, I decided to test him. I asked him to accompany me to Margaret's place for errands. I observed his reactions when Victoria's name came up. I noted whether his focus was on me, or whether he was still caught in old patterns. Each test was subtle. A quiet measure of his sincerity. And James, for the first time in years, realized he could not charm his way back. Victoria tried contacting James repeatedly. Messages full of nostalgia, hints of old memories. But James hesitated. He no longer looked at her with the same devotion. His eyes kept returning to me. I noticed her frustration. She had underestimated the changes 10 years had wrought. Her presence no longer intimidated me. I decided it was time for subtle closure. I invited James to a casual dinner. I ensured Victoria was also attending, to test his focus. I controlled the environment quietly, with calm gestures and firm decisions. At dinner, he attempted to speak. But I guided the conversation with poise. I smiled, listened, and responded strategically. By the end of the evening, it was clear. James had no control over the past. And I had the upper hand now. As we walked home, James confessed. I've never realized how much I lost. How much you became remarkable. I nodded softly. Yes. And it's not something you can reclaim with words or apologies. He looked at me, a mixture of regret and awe. The silent truth settled. 10 years of absence cannot be undone. But growth and strength can be undeniable. Pause, 4 seconds. Part 5, the final test. I decided to give him one last, quiet test. I asked him to help me organize a charity event. I observed whether his focus was genuinely on me or still distracted by the past. I noticed subtle behaviors, how he interacted with others, how he respected boundaries, how patient he could be. By the end of the event, it was clear. He had learned, but I had grown beyond dependence on his approval. Victoria's attempts at influence were gone. She realized her charm no longer had power. James had to face the consequences. He had lost his place, not through conflict, but through silent, undeniable growth. Weeks passed after the charity event. James continued to try, but subtly, I had already set the terms. Not words. Not confrontations. But quiet, undeniable actions. He came one evening, nervous, hesitant. Emily. I need to know, can we try again? I looked at him calmly. Yes, but only if you truly understand what it means to respect me, to value me, I replied softly. He nodded slowly. I do, he whispered. But I could see the fear in his eyes. Fear that words alone would not fix the past. That night, as I prepared for bed, Margaret, his grandmother, sent me a message. Emily, you have always been the heart of our family. I want you to know, your place has never been in question. You have grown into someone truly remarkable. Don't let the past or anyone else define you. I smiled softly, letting the words sink in. The validation I had quietly earned for 10 years was now undeniable. James, desperate to prove himself, asked to meet Victoria one last time. She arrived, full of charm, unaware of the shift. He tried to recreate old memories, trying to choose between the past and the present. But in that moment, Emily stepped forward. I've made my choice, I said quietly, firmly. And it wasn't him. It wasn't Victoria. It was me. James' face went pale. I don't understand, he whispered. I looked at him with calm certainty. You left. I stayed. I grew. I healed. And I chose myself. Victoria's charm faltered. She realized her influence was gone. James understood, finally, that he had lost something irreplaceable. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I had chosen strength, dignity, and self-respect. Focused on my work, my passions, my friends. I spent evenings with family, helped those in need, and built a life that was entirely mine. James tried, subtly, to reconnect. But I remained calm. He realized that apologies could not buy back time. Nor could charm erase years of absence. The power of my choice, my quiet growth, was the ultimate revenge and the ultimate liberation. Months later, at another gathering, James and Victoria attended. I walked in, confident, composed. They both realized silently. The woman they underestimated had become untouchable. No words needed. No confrontations necessary. The victory was mine, quietly, gracefully, irreversibly. Thank you for listening to her unspoken ties. Sometimes, love isn't about who comes back or who leaves. Sometimes, love is about choosing yourself, growing quietly, and letting life reveal the consequences of others' choices. Remember, strength isn't loud. Grace isn't boastful. And silence can speak louder than words ever could.